premise number 1. Premise number 1 is the social contract. Those of you who have studied the social contract in any one of its forms, John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, Rousseau, will see this as being fairly familiar. This is where social contract begins in Western thought. In the first place, did we not bring you into existence? Your father married your mother, and by our aid and begat you. Say whether you have any objection to urge against those of us who regulate marriage. This is Athens speaking, and Athens says, you exist because we made it possible for your mother and father to marry. You exist because we created an environment in which they could have children. Do you have any objection to our rules or customs for marriage? None, I should reply. Or against those of us who regulate the system of nurture and education of children in which you were trained? Were not the laws who have the charge of this right in commanding your father to train you in music and gymnastic? Athens continues. Furthermore, we created an educational environment in which you were reared. You were protected by Athenian laws, and you were brought up in Athenian schools, and the law commanded that your father make sure that you receive this attention. Do you have any problem with that? Or, I'm sorry, let me rephrase the question. Do you consider those rules to be right? Socrates says, yeah, right, I should reply. Athens has given protection to Socrates. It has protected him from injury. It has protected him from theft. It has nurtured him by providing him an education, by making it possible for him to exist. What does Socrates owe Athens in return? I'm sorry? In this case, yes, his life. But just on any other day, what does any citizen owe in return for that? Obedience. Follow the laws. Let me put it this way. Andy, if I enact a law in the government that forbids theft, and I protect you from theft, so if somebody steals from you, I prosecute them. I send them into jail, or I fine them, and I get your stuff back. I'm protecting you. That's something that you're enjoying. That's a benefit to you, right? What do you have to give me?
I have to follow that law.
You have to follow that law too. A social contract. A contract is a business relationship in which two parties meet and both of them give something to the other for mutual benefit. In this contract, here, this paragraph indicates everything that Socrates has benefited from. The education, the nurturing, the protection. Just as Andy has gained protection from theft. And what must I give up? I must give up a little bit of my freedom. I give up my freedom. I submit to the laws. And when I submit to those laws, the laws seem to work. Go ahead, A.B. Oh, I'm sorry. Olivia.
Talking about like when they're talking about like educating them in like
Yes.
music and gymnastics. What is gymnastics?
Oh, just physical training.
Oh, okay.
Socrates was served in the military, and evidence is that this was compulsory, that part of education for Athenian males was physical and required military service as well.
So like they had to be in there?
Right,
Okay.
right. Probably not to the extent that the Spartans did, but still, that was a requirement. Moving on to the next premise. These laws, like the law against theft, Andy doesn't have a choice in whether he obeys that law. Do you imagine that a state can subsist and not be overthrown, in which the decisions of law have no power, but are set aside and overthrown by individuals? So if Andy decides, you know what, on Tuesday I'm not going to be bound by the law against theft, and on Wednesday I will. What happens to the law against theft? Yes, Tori. It becomes more than weaker, it becomes nonsense. It becomes a recommendation. But it doesn't have any actual power. What?
Would it be kind of like a guideline
Yeah, it would be a guideline, but it wouldn't have any force. So if somebody wanted to steal from Andy, they could. Why? Because there's no law with any teeth. Because the law only commands if Andy wants to. It says no. Social contract doesn't work that way. If Andy is submitting to the law, that means he's submitting to the law. In order for this to work, he must actually obey that law. And that means that he doesn't get the right to decide, oh, today I'm going to follow it, tomorrow I'm not going to follow it. He obeys the law. We, that indicates us as citizens, we could have refused this agreement by leaving at any time, but we chose to stay. In the paragraph, we once again refers to Athens. We further proclaim and give the right to every Athenian that if he does not like us when he has come of age and has seen the ways of the city and made our acquaintance, he may go where he pleases and take his goods with him. And none of us laws will forbid him or interfere with him. Any of you who does not like us and the city and who wants to go to a colony or to any other city may go where he likes and take his goods with him. The contract is not forced. Nobody has held a gun to Socrates' head and given him an offer he can't refuse. The contract has been signed willingly because Socrates has said, okay, I'll stay. He's always had the freedom to leave. There's no fine print. But he who has experience of the manner in which we order justice and administer the state and still remains has entered into an implied contract that he will do as we command him. So if Andy stays, Andy is implicitly saying, I agree to these rules. Why? Because I'm still here. And if I liked some better, I would go over there. Socrates says, if I didn't like the rules of Athens, I got my choice of a number of different city-states on the Grecian peninsula. I could take off and go to one of them. He has the freedom to go. And furthermore, those laws are very obvious. When he says, he who has experienced the manner in which we order justice and administer the state, he means the laws are pretty clear. It's not like they're secret. Andy knows very well that there's a law against theft, that you can't just go around stealing stuff from each other. So Andy would observe that law because he knows it. And if he doesn't like it, he would leave or might even work within the law to change it. This means that we cannot ditch the law because of personal reasons. And that goes back to what we've been talking about in the beginning. The revenge idea. I cannot proceed from my own personal feelings at the moment or my personal needs. Look at this first clause. Think not of life and children first. Do not consider your own personal interests, even if those personal interests are your relationships with your family, relationships with your children, the most personal of personal relationships, parent to child. He says, think not of life and children first and of justice afterwards, but of justice first. Act according to right. In response to Abby's question about feelings, put feelings aside and determine if it's right or wrong rationally. And if it's right rationally, do it. If it's wrong rationally, don't. Go ahead, Elizabeth.